The two most common savings tools Canadians have access to are the Registered Retirement Savings Plan, or RRSP, and the Tax-Free Savings Account, or TFSA. Now, both are great tools, but they work in very different ways. And depending on your income, your goals, and your stage of life, one might be a better fit than the other. So in this video, I'm bringing in Kyle Martins from our team to break down the key differences and help you decide which one makes the most sense for you. Well, Kyle, thanks so much for joining us today, talking about RRSPs, TFSAs, which most of our viewers would have or should have. But maybe tell us quick what the differences are between them.
Yeah, so there is some key differences between RRSP and a TFSA. The first being is how the tax treatments correlate with those accounts. So with an RRSP, obviously, you're putting pre-tax dollars into an account that will be deferred down the road. And when you take it out, you're going to be taxed on those dollars. So there's some tax advantages to that. But then there's also the TFSA, which is slightly different in the sense that you're putting money that's already been taxed at some point, whether it's income or whatever the case may be. And then you're able to put it into this account and withdraw it on a tax-free basis. So one's deferring tax and one is you're just growing it tax-free.
So maybe tell me a situation. So obviously very different. Most Canadians should be using both those types of accounts to some extent. But maybe give me a situation like, when should an RRSP be used? So we have these two accounts. Someone's sitting there with $1 saved and they're not sure like which bucket should I put it into?
Yeah, and this is a common question that we get with a lot of our clients is, should I put money into an RSP or should I put it in a TFSA? And like, what's the net benefit of doing either or? So we see it all the time. With the RSP, the main goal is you want to put it in when you're earning a high amount of income and take it out in retirement when you're in a lower tax bracket. So there's some tax advantages there. That is kind of the key objective when you're looking at an RSP. There's also many different tax planning, financial planning, kind of retirement planning aspects of it that we can look into, but kind of that's the main goal that we look at. And does it make sense as you lead into retirement or even before, like as you're accumulating maybe 10, 15 plus years away?
And a lot of people ask us, like, is there too much RSP? So two of the big questions around RSPs we got asked is, can you have too much RSP? Which I think both of us would answer no. Obviously, we did the podcast with David Chilton. He was saying he has a friend with like 20 or 30 million. Well, yeah, that might be, but again, great problem to have. But 99.99% of us, it's hard to build too much. We've had clients with $2, $3, $4 million RSP accounts, and we've been able to melt it down and create a tax rate lower in retirement than when they put their money in. And that's really ties into the second question is, like, is there an income threshold where it's like, it's not a hard and set rule, but if I'm making over this, I want to consider RSPs versus if I'm lower, maybe I want to do TFSAs.
Yeah, the end goal is kind of your projected income in retirement as kind of the goal post, but we normally see kind of a bigger difference when you're making over $60,000 of income. It's kind of the buffer mark, and it varies from province to province, but around that 60,000 mark is normally the general guideline where we see a bump in that tax bracket where there is some tax efficiency potentially as you get closer to retirement, start pulling it out in the lower tax bracket.
Well, and that's exactly right. And so it's like around 60,000, there's typically, like in BC here, there's a bump from about 22 to 28%. So it's like a big enough bump where it's like, hey, we're getting value now for that RSP contribution and the deduction that we're going to receive. And then the idea is let it grow tax deferred. And when we pull it out, we're going to be in a much lower tax bracket. And I just want to comment on that as well. We do thousands of plans here in our office over the years. And, again, the average, I'm doing a video coming up on this, but the average couple here in Canada in retirement, the average tax rate they pay is sometimes single digits or low double digits. So like I'll say 8 to 12% is very common that we see for a middle class Canadian couple in retirement. And so if you're able to put money in and get a tax break or tax deduction at 28%, and then when you pull it out, you're averaging only 10, 12%, like that's a good spread. And it's grown tax deferred over that period of time. So, again, understand how much tax you're going to pay in retirement. But for the majority of us, we're going to pay a lot less, even though we may not think. Again, there's a lot more tax credits, et cetera. So it's still worth it to kind of, utilize that RSP. So let's shift over to the TFSA account. Maybe give us a situation where TFSA makes sense, income threshold, goal planning, et cetera.
Yeah, so obviously the whole goal at the TFSA is it's growing on a tax-free basis. So there's already a difference there from the RSP. The biggest kind of indicator of maybe why a TFSA might make more sense in your scenario is really your goals leading up into retirement, and depending on how close you are into going into retirement as well. Because if you have a large expense coming up, say a couple years down the road, you're buying a vehicle or you're going on a big trip, and you need those funds accessible. You don't have it in your savings account, you don't have it in a non-registered account, or whatever the case is. Well, you're gonna have to pull it from somewhere. And if you're pulling it from an RSP, well, you're gonna be incurring a lot of tax to take it out. So maybe it's part of the plan, and that's totally fine. You can budget it through. But if you need to pull funds out, a TFSA might make more sense because you're pulling it out on a tax-free basis, not incurring a larger tax bill in 1 year, and able to kind of smooth out your tax rate throughout retirement. We talk about it a lot. That TFSA is really your flex account. So it's able to give you a lot of flexibility in retirement and maybe put you in a better scenario going forward and pay less overall tax.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see it as a huge piece. Again, that kind of that flex account, or often we call it the lever account, is like, well, I need a bit more money that year for a car or whatever it is, travel, whatever. You can pull it from the TFSA. Years that you don't need as much, you can put money back in there, top it up, etc. So it's, I would say it's probably the most powerful tool that you can have entering retirement. Maybe not your biggest tool. That should be your RSP or your pension. But for most of us, the TFSA is a very, very important tool. And that's why it's important to have that, that runway leading up to retirement, to start building it up and actually enter into retirement with a tax-free savings account. So just to summarize here, so an RSP, so I have $1 to save. So let's say I make $100,000 a year and I put $5,000 into my RSP. The government or CRA looks at it as if I made $95,000. So I get a tax deduction, $100,000 minus my contribution of $5,000. I'm only paying tax on $95,000. But that $5,000, yes, it grows tax deferred, grows over time. But when I take it out, it's going to be taxable income for me. But ideally, that's in my retirement and I'm in a much lower tax rate. Whereas if I make 100 grand and put 5,000 into a TFSA account, I don't get the tax deduction. So I'm still paying tax on $100,000 of income, but that $5,000 grows tax deferred and tax free. So when I pull it out down the road, no tax payable. And that's why, when you have that dollar of savings, should I do RSP? Should I do TFSA? That's the value of like, okay, well, how much income do I have now? What's my tax break now versus what I'm going to pay in the future? And again, that 60,000 threshold is a good mark to kind of work off of, because again, that's that bump in tax rate. But definitely, if you're making over 60, you want to really consider using an RSP if you're not already. So, and then talk about both these accounts, like just utilizing them in retirement and how they actually, like a lot of us, we spend 40 years building up these accounts, but what does it actually mean for retirement?
Yeah, of course. And I mean, just to kind of point out too, a lot of income earners will say, well, I don't want to pay tax. And so the whole reason is I'm just going to put in RSP by default. And so it's always a thing to think about is like, you got to find some balance here. Yes, you're going to pay a little bit more tax by putting it in a TFSA because it's after tax dollars, but you're also creating some flexibility down the road. And then when we talk about utilizing these accounts in retirement, that's exactly that. Is the TFSA is really going to give you that flexibility. It's going to allow you to have, if you have larger expenditures, whatever the case is, that you can access that account on an ongoing basis and not incur a large tax bill. Now, with RSP, obviously, we talk about a lot on the channel is there's the opportunity to melt it down in a more tax efficient manner. So we can draw it down efficiently, level out your income throughout retirement, and ideally, you're putting it in at a high tax bracket, taking it out in a low tax bracket, and saving the difference. So there's an automatic tax savings there, and then just more efficient retirement income. So there's obviously many different opportunities between both accounts and utilizing in retirement. It's really trying to figure out what is your end goal as you enter into retirement. What are some expenditures, some big things that you might have coming up down the road, and if one account is better than the other in your scenario.
So for anyone looking to, start saving, utilizing RSPs, TFSA, first off, understand what both accounts are. We have videos on that, and we'll have some future videos really breaking down the RSP, breaking down TFSA more detail. But as far as the RSP versus TFSA, both are good. You should have both as you enter retirement. But really, like if you have $1 to save, use that 60,000 as a starting point. Talk to your financial planner, figure out what is the best way forward for me. Where should I put my money? So. Kyle, thank you for joining us on the video. Great to have you back on here. We'll have you on again soon.
Thank you.